Yo, what up guys, it's Flark, the Frosty Cow version, and our verse percent build that we spent so much time meticulously crafting has been nerfed by 33% in PvP. So obviously, a bombardment of questions came my way. Is it still good? Is Mastery the answer? Is Gushing the answer? What stats do we use? What corruptions do we use? What essences do we use? What changed, if anything? And those are all fantastic questions. I have spent the last 2 weeks trying to theorycraft the answer to those questions, and it's been a nightmare to do. Not to mention the top of the ladder and the highest rated DK play has been all over the place, using a lot of different things, so you can't even look directly there for a concrete answer. It's been really tough, and I can see why. Verse percent made a lot of sense and scaled perfectly with our performance in threes, and it's hard to replace that if you even need to. So I've been theorycrafting the answers to those questions for a long period of time, and I finally have my own results. And of course, I will provide all the reasons why, as I always do. So let's venture back into the lab and try and tackle once more, and hopefully for the final time, the full itemization and build creation of Frosty K from now until the end of BFA. Cross your fingers. But of course we'll be looking at stat weights, traits, essences, and corruptions one last time, hopefully. And we'll start us off with itemization. Now, starting us here, because it is pretty much the base that holds everything together, but it is going to give a lot of spoilers into the other sections, and of course I can't help that. But what we have here is a very interesting setup, so I'm going to have to use the other corruptions and traits to explain it. But let's start with the easy stuff. Verse and Mastery. They've swapped between the two best stats back and forth for that #1 spot since the beginning of the expansion, in my eyes. So obviously that's what you want in every piece of gear. If they're both that good that they can be the only two vying for that top spot, well, every piece of gear should just have both, because as we know, the verse percent corruption got nerfed. Versatility didn't get nerfed in PvP. So a very simple, concrete answer is get verse mastery with the socket on every piece, which I have managed to do now. My gear is actually better than my last video. I have that on every single piece. And that is from, like I said in my last video, a combination of PvE, of course, Mythic Plus, PvP, which is great, and crafted gear, which is easy, though expensive, but at least it's guaranteed if you just put enough work into it. Though that could be said about anything. So that base stats creates an obvious window into some really, really high burst windows, and just from those two, getting verse and mastery on every piece. So that's great. But you'll notice something very bizarre. One, I'm hovering over right now, a spoiler of those corruptions, mastery percent gear, while at the same time having a verse gem in my piece. Now, I assure you I haven't gone completely nuts. There is a reason for that. Let's talk about verse percent for a second here. We had so much versatility because we put it on every single piece, and we put it in every single gem and every single enchant. So that gave us more versatility to increase from all sources. Well, mastery is actually found on two pieces that versatility was not. The necklace for 400 and the cloak for 70. That is 470 base mastery out of thin air compared to versatility, which is what we had before. Not only that, it is also found on traits, which versatility did not have easy access to or access at all. Namely, Frostwhelps, mastery, Trade Winds, mastery. And you still have Elemental Whirl, which gives mastery, or Blood Siphon, which gives mastery. So, you have a lot more sources of mastery than you actually had from versatility on this base gear setup, specifically because of the necklace and the cloak, which means you're still getting a huge amount of base mastery to increase from. Furthermore, There's another secret, another spoiler. You can get mastery from other sources simply by corruptions. And why then would I have all this mastery set, but yet go verse? Because if you're getting all of that mastery from other sources, then your mastery percent is still extremely valuable, and you don't have to fall to a point where you're not using that overwhelming tankiness and mixed damage that give you so much sustained pressure, still containing that absurd burst that you have with the Chill Streak Blood of the Enemy, and Blood of the Enemy is only increased by burst, the actual damage from it, not from mastery. And you also get, big healing, survivability, all the good stuff. So this mixed set now that I have gives you value from your mastery from all sources, gives you obscene value from your gear, and of course retains all the burstiness of the old build while not getting affected by the verse percent nerf. So while the stats look a little obscene, well, why wouldn't you just want 36% more mastery? By putting them all in your gems, you get 36% more mastery from all of those gems, because at some point you become a glass cannon, and Frost doesn't work very well that way. Without a lot of haste, your globals are slow, and with no haste and no globals, you're not getting enough death strikes off, so you need some form of brute tankiness. Once you're playing to only do setups, you really need to survive during the in-between points of those setups, and if you're not surviving because you're not having any pressure and you don't have enough versatility, then you're in trouble. Remember, other specs have so much pressure that they survive by out-pressuring the other team. But if Frost is only doing goes in short windows and then forced to live while they don't have as much damage, they're just getting teed off on. And if they don't have the versatility to deal with that, they're in a lot of trouble. So what you have here is an entire set based around getting mastery value, getting corruptions that are not nerfed, but retaining a fantastic amount of versatility. Before verse percents were a thing, you'd look at this and you'd be like, what the heck? That's so good. So you still have that beautiful 31% increased healing on my gear. Try and get it as high as you can, of course. And you retain now unnerfed corruptions that will provide some extreme damage that we're going to talk about, of course, more in that section. Like I said, there are going to be a lot of spoilers, because otherwise you'd take one look at this piece that has mastery percent with verse gems and verse enchants and be like, well, he's lost his mind, close video. But I assure you, this is after many, many games of testing and theory craft. This is what I've found to be the most powerful. And of course, we're going to talk about some of the alternatives in the corruption section and my own thoughts on those, and you guys can discuss it in the comments as well. So that's stats. So some itemization tricks. Verse mastery on every piece is just the dream, so you don't really have to worry about anything crazy. We don't have any weapons that are good. We have no Gatikus. I know you've got the fusion cutter or the servant splitter. They're trash. You can try them for yourself, and they're trash. So then you could agree with me, and you'd be like, yes, that is in fact trash. Thank you, Flarkness. Wanted to see it for myself. Now I see that it is trash. But stats are still great. So we don't have any crazy stuff to look for. The only things we're really looking at here would be trinkets. Now, like I said, I wanted to retain an obscene amount of verse because of how important it is to have survivability in between goes, otherwise you're just going to get teed off on and die. So badge and insignia still have that value for me. The only other things that I could see being used is the wheel, not Dressed Agath, because you're doing grip sweeps and you're already countered by pets, so you don't want to get countered further by pets. I mean, that's just overkill. But the wheel adds damage to those goes because it doesn't get split. So you could use the wheel, or you could use, of course, the Vial of Animated Blood. This will now overemphasize mastery in comparison to verse, but it syncs up perfectly with the cooldown of Blood of the Enemy. I have been testing this out. I will be adding a socket to it this week and testing it out even further. So that is a very powerful trinket. And one more notable mention is actually this trinket, which I haven't used yet, but I have seen used against me. And ironically, it's actually good. It does a lot of AoE pressure and slaughters pets, which is kind of good because then you get them out of the way so you can chill streak a little better on the people rather than their companions. So those are the 4. Let's go over them one more time, or 5, I suppose, because there's 2 AoE trinkets. You can have the standard badge insignia to get the amount of verse that I have and feel very, very survivable in between goes. Or you can do the bike or the Fang for... Remember, the bike is the remote guidance device from Mechagun. Or the Fang for some crazy AoE pressure during every go in the middle of your chill streak Blood of the Enemy. Or you can go the Vial of Animated Blood to sync it up perfectly with your Blood of the Enemy while going Mastery over Verse. And that's your itemization techniques. It's very simple compared to Unholy. We have no Gatiku to farm, and there's no bracers like Fire Mage. Just do Verse Mastery on every single piece. You can do PvE, PvP, PvP, PvE, or Jewel Crafting. Hey, and PvP. Also PvP. So you can get some gear from PvP. Doesn't that feel good? Generally, you can't do that. I know a lot of classes have to go straight to the raid to get their BIS pieces, but we do have some really, really powerful gear you can get from PvP, like I mentioned in my last video. And that's stats. But it opened up some more questions, of course, because I teased at traits and corruptions. So let's get right into that now. Traits are actually worth talking about again, because I just went over these in my last video, and now they've changed to the ones that I actually didn't give as much credit in my old video because of the mastery percent. Like I said, if you can get mastery traits, then you're getting an obscene amount of value out of your mastery percent without having to sacrifice verse, because you're not replacing verse traits, you're just adding mastery to the pool. And that's how I've been able to create this mixed set that feels so good for me. And that comes from Frostwhelps, Trade Winds, and of course, you still want 1 Frozen Tempest. This thing is absurd AoE pressure and gives you a Rhyme proc and scales with your mastery. So, what are you looking for? You're looking for Frostwhelps, Trade Winds, Frozen Tempest, and the only other trait that is generally found on these that can be good is Icy Citadel. You'll notice I have 2. Icy Citadel does increase your sustained pressure and is very, very good with Ice Cap, which we'll also be talking about in just a second, literally. But those traits go hand in hand. So you get your Mastery procking traits, and then you get your Icy Citadel to back up those goes that you can get in between pillar windows, and you're getting them so frequently because your pillar is a faster cooldown. So these pieces tend to have both of those, as they're the iconic frost traits, so they're very common. So you're really looking just for the standard BIS frost traits for Ice Cap PvE. I don't know much about PvE, but that's what I've heard. You've got the Icy Citadel, the Frostwhelp's Indignation, a Frozen Tempest because of how good it is, especially in PvP, and Trade Winds because it gives you an obscene amount of mastery. And those 4 traits, if you find some combination of them, you will be good to go. That is actually definitive. Sometimes we have some choices or some gray areas. That is pretty definitive. Find some combination of 4 of those traits, especially Frostwhelp's Indignation, and you will be very, very happy with what you have. I've adored that combination so far. The combination I have right now feels like obscene sustained damage, which is something Frost actually lacks, as we talked about 5 minutes ago. And of course, you still need to find 1 Runic Barrier to have the increased AMS duration. That is just so good, you never want to pass it up. Very quick section, but also very impactful section that is totally different than my last video and really, really valuable to getting that mastery percent value and the ice cap value. And I'm going to append that to the end of this section because I don't really need a full new talent section. Everything has been the same since essentially the dawn of time. And all the PvP talents, I still have my video on that, you know how that works. But one thing that you guys always talked about is, why are you using Obliteration? Why are you using Obliteration? I was like, I can't get value out of Ice Cap. It's just, I'll use the Rune Reset because it helps me do goes, because now I have a Rune Reset every time I'm trying to do a go. But now that I have this mastery stacking during pillar and a little bit more focus on constant pressure, Ice Cap with double Icy Citadel, double Frostwhelps becomes extremely powerful. Also synergizes with Blood of the Enemy and all the crit that gives you. So Ice Cap now, finally, I believe, is the go-to talent. Just run it. Now you won't have to look at that last line and be like, well, what the heck? They're all so weird. Crit is bad in PvP, Obliteration just sucks overall, Breath is nerfed. I think Ice Cap finally takes over in my heart as the go-to talent. Of course, Breath still does really powerful damage and goes because it adds damage to when you generally couldn't press additional globals, especially when your haste is so comically low in BIS Frost gear. But I think for 99.9997% of players, especially all you guys watching this video, you, personally, you, not me, you, will get the most value out of Ice Cap. And that's what I'm trying to give you guys, something that will help you play Frost to the best of your ability. And I think Ice Cap is that talent. So now we can move on to the next section, which is Essences. And I'm not going to go much into this at all because it's very, very simple. I did one change, everything else is the same. Conflict Minor is extremely important. Breath Minor is extremely important. I've been saying these things since the Essences themselves were released, so by now it's concrete in everybody's mind. I'm sure that everybody believes these things. Blood of the Enemy as a major, I've been saying, has absurd synergy with Chill Streak, and that is true. We've seen the damage. It's wild. So what the heck is this doing here? We talk about how haste is a pretty bad stat for Frost. You're not stacking on your pieces, so why would you want it here? Because essences don't give you stats. There's no mastery essence, and the minors that give versatility are not as concrete as Conflict and Strife. We don't really need the rune generation from Lucid Dreams in PvP. Remember, your Blood of the Enemy Chill Streak window isn't even really using runes. It's Blood of the Enemy and Chill Streak that are doing all the damage, and that doesn't even cost a rune to press. So that doesn't have a lot of value. And some of the other things that I've mentioned in the past that scaled so well with versatility, like Purification Protocol Minor, or even Vision of Perfection with the verse percent, kind of lose value when you're not going to 70, 80, 90, 100% verse. But one thing is very valuable to us. At least having enough haste. Completely for free, because all the other minors aren't giving us mastery or some extreme value that we're giving up, or a single piece of gear that we're giving up. At least giving us enough haste to get our globals off. We still do have a set of globals we have to get off during every burst window, and once they're running, our damage is very, very high, but missing opportunities in the stun because your globals are so slow can feel very impactful. Again, it's not like we're giving up a mastery ring for a haste ring. We're giving up no mastery stats, and we're getting haste out of it. So unlike how you would not go haste on your gear, you can in your minor. And this minor gives a very high amount of this stat. It would be like if you were trading a 100 mastery ring for a 300 haste ring. And it starts being different there. It's just like has more value. So because of that, you can make up some of the haste that you're lacking to actually get your globals moving, to get some more Ice Cap value, because Ice Cap loves haste in PvE, which we're not doing, but still meaningful. You're getting more Ice Cap value, you're getting your setup globals out faster, you're getting a smoother rotation without sacrificing anything. And yeah, that was a lot to talk about one minor, but I knew everybody was going to be asking, because they asked me in my stream. And I hope that is the best way that I can explain it. You're not losing what you would give up on a piece of gear. And you're getting an enormous amount of value that smooths that stuff out while still stacking these to absurd levels. Hopefully makes sense. So we know we've seen this burst setup, these core 3 before, and we know what they do. So I won't go into that anymore. But what we will look at is corruptions, because this is going to be very impactful and the final subjects of the video. So I went, as you got a little bit of a spoiler, with mastery percent, which scales with those traits and the cloak in the neck and all my pieces of gear, with mastery procs, and the mastery procs also scale with the mastery percent, which is why I chose to run them. I don't have enough base mastery when I put gems and enchants in every single piece's verse to warrant using all mastery percent. So instead, I went half and half, and then I would have these mastery procs, which would spike to very high amounts during burst windows, while also getting even more value out of the corruption themselves because the stat that they are proccing is increased by mastery percent. We talked about that with verse percent, but there was no reason to. When I had that much verse and conflict and strife major, there was zero chance I would want anything other than sustained high verse, which came from verse percent. That's not what's going on here. With the traits and the other sources, this is what I've found the most powerful setup. And it allows you to continue, like I said, gemming and enchanting verse to get this number as high as possible while not sacrificing the value of mastery percent corruptions, because you have mastery proc, mastery, mastery, tons of mastery. This does work. I have tested this now at about 2900 MMR, and wow, the damage is great. In fact, I haven't played any games since I was finally able to perfect my gear, so it's only better since. I just added a couple gems, got one more verse mastery piece, and got a better ring, and it completed the set. It did not change anything with my gear, so it's only better than the last time I played, and the last time I played actually went particularly well. So this is going to be that, but stronger. So I know for a fact this will work. Whatever MMR you guys are trying to play at, unless it's, I guess, 3200, which is untested to me. So if you're playing at that and you want to test this out for me, please do. But up until this point, it's going to do an enormous amount of pressure while keeping that sustainability. But we've got more things to talk about for corruptions. Namely, what the heck? We've seen high-end players, very reputable high-end players, running gushing and maybe even some haste. How could I come to such a different result? I've seen those clips, and when you stack 9 gushing, you're going to get some pretty crazy results. And I saw the clips, and I looked at the damage meter after, because it was shown, and 9 gushing, so your entire max cloak to this point corruption budget was about 25% of the user's damage. Well, when you see that, 25 to even 30%, when you see that on a meter, you're like, what? It's doing so much of your damage. Gushing is completely overpowered. This is obscene. What am we supposed to do? Of course we have to run gushing. Why would you run anything else? But when you think about it, doing 25 to 30% more damage with your entire corruption budget, is that actually as obscene as it sounds? Because the stats that you used to get from verse percent, it alone gave you like 50% more damage just from versatility. Just like versatility increases damage done, and you would get 50% more damage, as well as having a 25% higher wall and 50% more healing. So corruptions do more than just increase your damage by 25%. And in fact, mastery corruptions, and I have shown this, will increase your frost damage from this setup that I'm running by about 90 to 100%. And almost all of your damage is frost damage, namely chill streak. So is 90 to 100% more than 30? Of course. So while you gain this obscene amount of sustain that you get from this corruption that will show up in a big way on the damage meter, you lose a lot of the damage you could get from, well, I don't know, everything else on that damage meter. While frost does lack in some big hitting frost strikes like of Legion, you still have the chill streak though, which is entirely increased by mastery, and the obscene sustain from frost fever, as you can see on this meter here, because it's we keep it up on everything and it just does a lot of your damage with all that mastery. So yes, I have seen those builds and I understand them, and I am definitely not knocking the players at the high end that are running them. But personally, just on a sheerly mathematical level, to me, I do not believe that that would be as good. If you're going to go gushing, I'd actually just say stick with the verse percent, because it should still increase your damage by about as much as full gushing does, while retaining extra survivability and healing. It won't be as good before the nerf, but I'm sure it'll be better than gushing. And I hope that I'm not poking any bears here, but just mathematically. And I hope that you guys have some discussion for me in the comments if you agree or disagree. But to me, mathematically, that makes no sense. You could actually get the same amount of damage increase while increasing survivability. I know, it shows up on the meter, it looks crazy, but careful. Careful the way you think about that. And that is just my personal thoughts on corruptions. And they work for me. You can see now, when you hit the dummies, of course, again, it's dummies, but when you get that triple stack that you can kind of get in PvP, and pets will immediately give you the 5 stack of Frost Whelps, which is beautiful. You can look at that mastery percent kicking in. And once you get that honed mind proc, which is a 50% uptime, wow, look at all those procs. So you're just gonna fish around for procs here. That's already at 92%, which is so much higher than we had it before. But that honed mind will kick in. Oh, a trade winds will kick in where you'll hit 140% while still having so much versatility. Then the honed mind will kick in. You'll have 180% while still having so much versatility, and that's when you can start throwing out some damage. And I just had a 300k Frost Whelps in there, so that's a lot of fun things. So yeah, your sustain with this build just becomes obscene because look at the mastery percent you're staring at all game. It's just honed mind's proc rate is so high, and the other ones do so much value while retaining a very, very solid not glass cannon burst percent. This is why I spent so long theory crafting this. I do believe this is the most powerful combination of things that you can put together, and you will always see very high mastery while still retaining high verse, and your damage from your chill streak, that's a 461k crit. Wish I could do that in PvP. Unfortunately, scaling is a thing. Also, that Frost Whelps hit for 300k. You even get the damage for Frost Whelps. We talked about how it gives you mastery, but the mastery that you're given from all of your other aspects, especially that very high uptime honed mind, increases the damage of the Frost Whelps that you get on every reduced cooldown pillar from Ice Cap. It is one of the most synergistic builds that I've created, I think, ever. It is extremely powerful. It's working at the highest level for me, and I heavily believe that is the mathematical and fundamental truth of what makes the best Frost DK build in the game. So, as the final recap, first mastery on every piece, verse gems and enchants to get to that stable point, and then to fill up the holes of mastery, you're getting trade winds, you're getting Frost Whelps, you're getting mastery procs, and you're getting mastery percent. Half and half. Watch this. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. There you go. And that, I believe, is the most powerful build. Now you may say, curse you, Flarkness, for releasing this video after Honed Mind rotates out. Do not fret. There are 3 ranks of it. It will be back soon. You have the mastery percent out now. I'm only using 6 pieces of gear. You've got 3 more unused. You could change the ranks that you use and still get that balance just by looking at the corruption values for each. So do not fret. Do not fret. Do not say, curse you, Flarkness. Instead say, I will just get my mastery percent today. When this video is released, currently mastery percent is in the vendor. And then the Honed Mind any rank will come out, and I will just use the corruption values to create that balance between the 2 of them. And I will also have that build without worrying about the fact that it just rotated, because there are 3 ranks of each, and all of them are potentially usable if you just work within that corruption budget. That's what I got for you guys. It's working. The damage is truly asinine in PvP, and if you can do setups with all that mastery and the chill streak and the blood of the enemy, and you still got your verse, you're going to see, I think, some of the most cosmically hilarious burst that has ever been in this game. My personal record is a 270k chill streak crit in PvP. Clipped on my stream, if you guys want to check that out. Feel free to watch each night as we go over this kind of crap, and you'll see the theory crafting live. I was going crazy for about 2 weeks, but there you have it. Enjoy. I hope it works for you as well as it does for me, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for everything.